Hey there, it's Steve from Serious Keto, and this is the Not So Serious Keto video podcast. I want to start by thanking everybody that sent me links when I requested links last week for response videos to the study about how red meat causes type 2 diabetes. So a lot of great videos out there, as I suspected, better than mine, but again, just thank you. I did get a couple sort of snotty or snooty replies from some people saying, "Oh, I can't believe you're unaware that so-and-so did a video." I'm sorry. I don't watch a whole lot of YouTube, to be perfectly honest. And when I do, very little of it is keto content. And that's not, I've talked about this before, it's not because I've got a big head, like I think I'm the only keto channel or whatever, but I spend so much of my own time, my work time, creating keto content and working on YouTube that to me, going and viewing some of that it's like an extra credit homework assignment or something like that. I enjoy it, but I don't watch a whole bunch of it because so much of it is what I already do. It kind of reminds me of that Seinfeld episode where Jerry started dating a massage therapist and thought he was going to be getting massages all the time. And she's like, "No, that's what I do for a living. I'm not going to do that outside of work." So that's kind of my attitude on YouTube. Essentially, the only thing I watch on YouTube is music videos, either like MTV style music videos or perhaps videos on guitar, either playing equipment, videos on photography, and videos on appliance repair. I mean, you can say whatever you want to say about YouTube, but YouTube and the content creators on YouTube that create appliance repair videos, you can find pretty much anything out there, and it has saved me so much money. So I love YouTube for that alone, just as sort of a resource so that you can be Mr. Fix-It at home. The one thing I can't find, though, is a good video on the Fleck 5600 SE water softener. My municipality just changed water sources. Bear with me, this will only take a second, but it's important to me. My municipality just changed water sources to a softer water source, and I want to readjust the salt usage on my water softener. I know how to get into the service menu. I know what my GPM was before we had a water softener. I know what it is now when I run through the bypass. And I think it's the brine refill time on the Fleck that fixes it. So if anybody out there is a water softener expert, just reply to this video with water softener expert. I won't take up the time of the other 10,000 plus people that watch or listen to this video, but I think you could help me out, which would be awesome. But getting back to the red meat causes diabetes thing, one of the points that I made, and it was made by so many of these other videos, is that they didn't segment keto or carnivore. They just looked at sort of the general SAD, standard American diet population. And those folks, when they're eating meat, likely are eating it with something else, something carby. And I got a catalog from an online steak company. I'm not going to show you the name because I'm not, pimping for them or anything like that. But it's just, it's page after page after page of just amazing looking and extremely expensive steaks. But then you get to the back segment here. Let me find it. And side dishes that they ship along. So here we go. These are the available side dishes that they offer. Let me read from this list and you tell me why someone might come down with type 2 diabetes. Chocolate truffle lava cakes, lemon cream cake, New York style cheesecake, Mississippi mud cake, red velvet cake, cheesecake sampler, white chocolate cranberry bars, brookies, crispy Asiago asparagus. Now, that sounds okay, except it's wrapped in phyllo dough. Then we actually hit two that are keto-friendly. Scallops wrapped in bacon and shrimp wrapped in bacon. Then we have baked potato casserole, macaroni and cheese, sweet potato casserole, potatoes au gratin, and cornbread dressing. Oh, there we go, and twice baked potatoes. Now imagine if you're eating all of that sort of stuff, if there might be a chance that you would develop type 2 diabetes. Well, that's what this study discovered, but they blame it on the meat. I also believe that pepperoni pizza was considered red meat, as was lasagna. So there you go. Anyhow, basically what I wanted to say is you guys really stepped up to the plate and came through on responding to my request for videos. I appreciate it. We are now fully into the swing of autumn. Autumn used to be my favorite season. I liked seeing the change in the leaves, the foliage. I liked football season. This year, I don't like football season nearly as much. Watching the Green Bay Packers this year, I'm having flashbacks to the mid-1980s. Hasn't been awesome. But probably the biggest reason I'm not a fan of autumn right now is it has become very difficult for me to record videos. And I want you to just think for a second why that might be. I'll wait. Leaf blowers. Everyone in my neighborhood seems to have a leaf blower, and it is almost impossible to find any time from dusk till dawn, or dawn till dusk, and sometimes after dusk, when someone isn't out running a leaf blower. I already have enough problems with external noises on my video. I live fairly near a regional airport, so very often I will have to pause videos because there's an airplane going overhead. Additionally, my refrigerator condenser noise, even the new fridge I got, the old fridge was worse, but the condenser noise on it provides this steady hum that you can hear in almost all of my videos. And anytime I try and use some sort of a sound cancellation or AI, Adobe makes this AI, I think they call it AI or Adobe Podcast now. I've used that in a couple of videos, and it really, really brings out the whole sort of radio voice to the point that it sounds artificial. So I prefer not to use that. So I'm fighting against my fridge, and I'm fighting against airplanes, and very often I'm fighting against lawnmowers, but now it's the non-stop leaf blowers. And I have one neighbor who's got it's a big one, it's industrial, it's like, looks like a Ghostbuster backpack on him. I'm sure it's gasoline powered. And he runs it like, I would compare it to when you're at a park or a stoplight next to someone on a Harley Davidson. Just that constant revving. Run, 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 like that. Non-stop. I don't know why he just can't just pull the trigger and hold the trigger down, but he likes to rev the thing. So, yeah, that's been messing with my schedule just a little bit. And I had to get that off my chest. Thanks for listening. Now we're ready to actually get into some keto-related content, and I've mentioned frequently that many of the topics that I come up with for these podcasts come from my Google News feed. And in the past week, there's been a couple of articles about the Apple Watch and non-invasive blood glucose monitoring. Because apparently there was an article that came out in Bloomberg. I haven't read the original article. I've just read some of the things like on 9 to 5 Mac and some other feed that I get. And basically, Steve Jobs wanted to see blood glucose monitoring in the first Apple Watch. So back in 2011, he said, this is going to be like the star feature of the Apple Watch. And they purchased a company called Avante, and they kept it completely secret. I think they kept it secret from the Avante employees that they were working for Apple, and they kept the purchase secret from Apple employees. And the technology that they're using is called shortwave infrared absorption spectroscopy. I had to think about that one for a little while. Basically, it shoots an infrared light into the interstitial space where, you've got some interstitial fluid. It's not blood, it's interstitial fluid. Kind of looks like blood. So like when you do a finger jab for a glucose test, that first drop is primarily interstitial fluid. And that's also what a continuous glucose monitor measures. Now the difference between actual blood glucose and the glucose in the interstitial fluid is the interstitial fluid lags, I believe, about 15 minutes behind the blood glucose. So if you're ever wondering what the difference is, that's it. But what this device does is it's supposed to measure the intensity of the light reflected back and then calculate the amount of blood glucose. Now, there's a couple reasons we haven't seen this technology yet, and every year they seem to predict that this is the year, it's going to be in the Apple Watch. One of the reasons is it's still too big, they say, which kind of surprises me, given how much stuff they're able to pack into a very small space now, why they haven't been able to accomplish this. But the other reason, and I'm more likely to believe this reason, just because I used to work in the healthcare and medical diagnostics industry, is FDA approval. Whenever you're dealing with the FDA, it slows things down immensely. I mean, anytime you're dealing with any sort of a bureaucratic organization, it slows things down, but especially within the healthcare industry. And if you run afoul of the FDA and they decide that some claim you made is inaccurate or the product doesn't work the way it's supposed to be after it's been cleared, they can shut you down. They can say, all right, no more selling this product, or you need to disable that feature on your watch or whatever. The business I worked for, they had an FDA violation on surgical C-arms. So these are the mobile X-ray type systems that look like a C, and you can move it over the bed and tilt it however you want to look at the patient while they're on a surgical table. And it was just crippling to the business. And I think Apple doesn't want to deal with that. They don't want to deal with the slowdown in terms of going through multiple stages of approval and potentially being having a product line shut down. Now, one of the features that I guess is going to be in the Apple Watch 9, I think that's the next one that's coming out, is a blood pressure monitor. However, it's not really a blood pressure monitor in that it takes your blood pressure. What it will do is report trends in your blood pressure, and supposedly, if you have an extreme event, a super high blood pressure, it'll give you a warning. I think the current Apple Watch does that maybe for heart rate or something. Unfortunately, it feels like it's still going to be several years until we start seeing non-invasive glucose measuring, which it disappoints me because I believe it was Tom Peters who said, what gets measured gets managed. And if people could start seeing how food affects their glucose, I think that would drive a lot more people into the low carb realm. Whether it drives them all the way to keto or to carnivore, I don't know about that. But before the Apple Watch, before Fitbit, nobody cared about getting in their steps. Now, 10,000 steps, it's a magic number. If you set blood glucose at 110 is the magic number, got to stay under that or stay under 100, whatever the user decides to set that threshold at, that will get managed, that will get monitored, and diets will change. So I've got my fingers crossed that whether it's Apple or Android or whomever, that somebody soon develops this technology, because as someone who wears a continuous glucose monitor and can see the impact of everything that I eat, it's great stuff, but it's just continuous glucose monitors are just outside of the financial realm for most people. And it's unfortunate because I think the people that could use it the most are probably the ones who can afford it the least. Oftentimes, it takes about 3 podcasts in a row for me to fully flush out a topic that I bring up, because I get so much great feedback from you, my viewers, and it stimulates thought for me, and then I feel obligated to share my thoughts with all of you. And that's why we're going to talk probably one last time, at least in a row, about Keto-vore. So one of the comments that I got from a number of people is just how the word itself doesn't make a lot of sense. If you look at the breakdown, vor, let's see, from your perspective, vor means to eat, what I eat. So you could be an herbivore, which means I eat just plants. You can be a carnivore, which means I eat just animals. You can be an omnivore, where I eat everything. But to say that you're a keto-vore means you eat keto. And that was really kind of the argument I felt I was making 2 podcasts ago, which is if you're keto-vore, at least in my opinion, you're still keto. You're just a different type of keto that doesn't necessarily need a separate label, except unless it helps you search for recipes or things like that. So I've been wrestling with this topic for a long time, way before the discussion of Keto-vore. Is there a better name for what we all do? And I think I've settled on at least what I'm going to call it for myself, which is I live a ketogenic lifestyle. So how do you define that? I define that by saying I am in the metabolic state of ketosis. I manage my diet. Oh, I hate that word. I'm going to talk about that in a second. I manage my food intake to maintain a state of ketosis, because when I'm in ketosis, I feel better. My whole body feels better. And I think if you say that you practice a ketogenic lifestyle, that does allow that individual flexibility. There's not specific rules applied to it other than be in ketosis. So I said I don't like the word diet. The reason for that is it's one word that kind of has 2 meanings. There was a time when diet meant what you eat. It's just what you eat all the time. So the diet of a koala is eucalyptus leaves. A diet of a panda is bamboo. They don't go on a diet. They just eat what they eat, and that's their diet. The other version of the word diet, though, is that short-term, not permanent thing that you do to reach some sort of a goal. Maybe it is to control your blood sugar. Maybe it is to control your cholesterol. Maybe it is to lose weight. But diet, I think, has this connotation that it is a temporary thing. And I think when it is a temporary thing, it also gets that fad label applied to it, which I think to call keto a fad is sort of ridiculous because it's been around now over 100 years, at least formally over 100 years. So I think by getting away from the word diet in terms of keto, we quit calling it the keto diet, just because, yeah, it does, in my opinion, it sounds temporary, it sounds sort of fatty, and it sounds like the sort of thing that you need to apply rules to. And that is why I prefer, and I personally am going to stick to, ketogenic lifestyle. Now, I'm not sure how much I would use that term outside of the keto-verse here. A lot of you had some inputs in terms of how you explain it to other people. Like, you can say, well, I like pizza, but pizza doesn't like me. Or I've got food allergies. Or I'm just trying to manage my blood sugar. Those are all perfectly acceptable and I think very valid explanations to people if you want to shut down the discussion right away and you don't want to have to get into the defense of a ketogenic lifestyle. But I've really enjoyed all the dialogue and feedback in the comments on this. I'd like to know, what do you think? Ketogenic lifestyle? Do you think we could make that term stick? Is there a better term? I don't know. Let me know down in the comments below. The last topic I want to talk about is doctors. And this goes, in a way, back towards the study on diabetes and red meat. In fact, it kind of has to do with a lot of studies, or in fact, any articles and many videos on YouTube. This whole thing that somehow the term doctor automatically gives credibility. And I think a great deal of that is, in at least the United States, we've kind of been taught to trust in doctors. They are this authority figure, and they're supposed to know way more than what we know, and they heal us, and they're magic, and all of this sort of stuff. But really, I think the term has been rendered largely useless by a lot of overuse. For starters, you can just call yourself doctor. When I was a kid, Dr. Demento. I'm pretty sure he did not have any medical training. Shaquille O'Neal is a doctor. He went to school a little bit longer than the rest of us and got his PhD in education. I'm actually glad that he is a doctor of education and not a urologist, given the size of his hands. I think perhaps a better urologist would be Dr. Dre. Gentlemen over 40, I think you get the joke. I've also seen a number of comments from viewers that refer to chiropractors as not real doctors. And I don't know that I necessarily agree with that, because they are in the practice of healing. I've been to a number of chiropractors. I love I don't love. I really like my current chiropractor. When I am in pain, my back, my neck, shoulders, hips, he has fixed me. I've gone in and he knows how to adjust me and make me better. So to me, he made me feel better. I'll call that a doctor. He certainly has had no less training in nutrition than an MD, which, as I understand it, they get about 1 hour of nutritional training throughout all of their med school. But speaking of med school, here's a joke for you. You've probably heard this one. What do you call the person who graduates last in their class in medical school? Doctor. So there are good doctors out there. There are bad doctors out there. But what's frustrating to me, and I have worked in and around the healthcare industry for about 25 years. There are some stories that if I told you, I would probably get kicked off of YouTube. And my wife has been a surgical nurse since she was 20. So we have a lot of inside information on the healthcare, I prefer to call it industry, because it is a business. And unfortunately, the way that business is compensated really kind of leads doctors to one of two solutions, which is prescriptions and surgery. That's what they do. What does a surgeon do? They do surgery. So if you go to a surgeon and you say, my arm hurts, guess what the answer is? It's surgery. Fortunately, with my wife being a surgical nurse, she has pointed me to some good surgeons. And I thought I needed to have my knees replaced. I went to a surgeon. The guy's like, no, just lose some weight. So I did. That helped. I think being keto helped immensely in terms of eliminating inflammation. But it was so refreshing to go see a doctor who would say, no, you can get better without medicine or without surgery. Oh yeah, of course there's all the lab work and diagnostic imaging. So I used to teach a class on lean process excellence to a local lab. So they do all the blood work for a local hospital system. And they told me that they have a term called rainbow testing. So whenever you give blood, you may notice that the vials have different colored stoppers, and that depends on what they're testing. Cholesterol is one vial, PSA is another vial, etc. And very often, doctors will just say, test it all, whether that test is necessary or not. And that means you're using all the colors of the rainbow in terms of the little vial stoppers. So within the lab, they joke that that's rainbow testing. And they speculate, notice I'm not making any claims here, YouTube, so I'm not saying anything that could get me in trouble. These lab workers speculate that it's because the more tests you can do, the more insurance reimbursement you can get. So it's unfortunate that we live in a system that compensates based on certain billable type action items. And I think that is what has bred an awful lot of cynicism in the keto community, especially for those of us who have discovered that just by altering what we eat, we can experience some pretty significant health benefits. And just to restate, YouTube, I'm talking about myself. I am not making any broad, sweeping medical claims here. I think it would be great if somehow doctors were compensated by the health of their patients. But like any measurement, it's going to get gamed. People are going to play with the measurement. If I'm a doctor and you only measure me by healthy patients, I'm not going to take appointments from any unhealthy patients. So maybe it's, some sort of hybrid mechanism where how many patients I can take from unhealthy to healthy and keep healthy. I don't know. I think it's too hard to monitor. I think we don't have the intestinal fortitude within the healthcare system to make that sort of change, which is why whenever I get a comment from one of my viewers that says, I've got a doctor that is keto supportive, it makes me simultaneously sad for me, but so very happy for that person. I wish we could get more people in the medical community on board with this. It seems like it would be easy because every time I go to the doctor's office and I look at people from the receptionists to the nurses to my doctor himself, they don't look all that healthy to me. And they look like the sort of people that keto might be able to do some good for. Anyhow, as always, I'd love to hear your feedback, your thoughts, your ideas, your experiences. Put them down in the comments below. But that is going to be it for the podcast this week. As always, I thank you for taking the time to listen to me, especially when I ramble about something that may not be relevant to you. So, thanks. And thanks for watching.